So many things in our world have cycles, including stress. And that's what we're talking about today. Welcome to Burnout Solutions, a podcast designed to help high achievers and healthcare professionals understand stress and how it can lead to burnout. Together, we'll explore how your brain and nervous system naturally work and why they sometimes hold you back, and how to overcome those challenges to fully enjoy the success you've worked so hard to create. I am your host, Mona Tippett, registered nurse, burnout coach, and resiliency educator. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're talking about something that affects basically every single one of us. So whether you're a parent juggling busy mornings or crazy evenings, carpooling kids around, a healthcare professional working long shifts, a teacher working with students, if you're working in customer service, or you're just someone trying to make it through the day without feeling completely drained out and stressed and burned out. I thought about this as I was making the last podcast about stress versus anxiety. You need to complete the stress cycle so that stress gets out of your body. So, what is the topic? Well, today we're going to talk about the stress cycle, not just stress itself, but what actually happens physiologically inside your body after you experience a stressor. And most importantly, what it takes to actually complete that cycle so that your body and your brain know that it's safe to let go of that stress. So this is why it matters. Most of us believe that stress ends when the stressful event ends, or at least we don't think about it anymore. So you finish your shift, you send the report, you pay the bill, you helped out the student, you finish a hard day, and maybe you just realize logically that your stressful event is over and you assume that your body resets. But often our biology doesn't work that way. And stress can leave behind a trail of unfinished business in our nervous system. And so when we actually don't complete the cycle, we can stay in stressed on mode, wired, tense, sometimes shut down. We feel drained, we feel unease, and it just really affects ourselves. So today we're going to talk about what the stress cycle is, why so many of us struggle to complete it, and most importantly, I'm going to give some science-backed strategies to help close the loop of stress so that your body can truly relax and you are not burning out and feeling stressed out all the time. So what is the stress cycle? Let's just start with the basics. When your body perceives a stressor, say that you're cut off in traffic, your boss emails you late at night, you have a patient that needs care immediately, you have a student that's coming apart, or a coworker that you have an interaction with that isn't going well, your stress response kicks in. And again, this is your sympathetic nervous system and your HPA axis at work. So adrenaline floods your bloodstream, your heart races, your muscles get tense, your body gets ready to fight, flight, freeze, shut down. Harvard Health explains it this way. Your stress response is an ancient survival mechanism. And I've talked about this before. It has kept our ancestors alive when there was a lion chasing them. But in today's world, the lion often looks like deadlines, arguments, a never-ending to-do list that we look at, and it brings us stress. And this stress response cycle has 3 stages. The first is a resting or a baseline state. This is when your body is calm at rest. We are on the left side of the Yerkes-Dodson law, and our parasympathetic nervous system is at work. The second in the stress cycle is we have an actual stressor. So we are activated by something. This is when we need attention. This is on purpose. This actually helps us learn, like I've talked about before. And at a certain point, this stress goes from eustress to distress. So this is our activation. And then the third stage is recovery. And this is when the stressor has passed after you've taken care of what you've needed to. So that stressor, that activated mobility, the activated energy that you felt, you followed it and you took action. And now that that is past, we need to recover. So your nervous system shifts back into baseline. Your parasympathetic nervous system takes over. Your sympathetic nervous system kind of shuts down. And that is the cycle. So we have resting, activation, and recovery. However, here is the problem. Often, step 3 or recovery doesn't happen. We finish the stressful event, but your body never gets the signal that you're safe. And you have chronic unfinished stress adding up, raising cortisol, impacting your cardiovascular system, your reproductive system, your GI system, everything, right? It affects our whole entire body. And this makes us more prone, actually, to anxiety, depression, and burnout, and helps us react to stress even more. The National Institute of Health has told us that chronic stress leads to an allostatic load. What is an allostatic load? Well, basically, an allostatic load refers to the wear and tear on the body that accumulates from repeated stress or chronic stress over time and leads to increased risk of health problems. So it's pretty much just the burden on your body biologically as it tries to adapt to life's demands. And having a high allostatic load is associated with higher risks of mortality, cognitive decline, physical decline. You get diseases like cardiovascular disease and diabetes. And this just happens because the stress systems are activated too frequently for too long because we don't complete the stress cycle. And I just wanted to give an example that happened just this morning. I was taking my daughter to school and I pulled out into traffic and I pulled in front of a car, and it was a little bit closer than I had anticipated. And the car didn't honk, it didn't hit us. And I just said, "Ooh, that was a little bit close." And my daughter said, "Yeah, you didn't kill me, but I'm going to have a heart attack just because that scared me so bad. My heart is jumping out of my throat. Holy cow, Mom." And she was just reacting to that experience. And I kind of laughed and I had this discussion with her and said, "I'm actually recording a podcast right now about this same thing." And I told her, "Okay, are you in any danger right in this moment?" She's like, no, but my heart is beating so fast." And I said, "It's okay. I just want you to relax. I want you to take big, deep breaths. And I want you to realize that we are safe right now. Nothing happened. And calm down your body. Take big, deep breaths." And I went through this process with her and calmed her down. However, if that didn't happen, just think of her going to school. And maybe you've had days like this where something like that happens. And so you're a little bit on edge when you get to wherever you're going. And then, something else happens and something else and something else. And you're constantly bombarded with things like headlines in the news and people glaring at you and conversations that didn't go right and dropping the ball somewhere or forgetting something. And experiences add up over and over and over and over throughout your day. And this creates a chronic stress situation where you have a high allostatic load because we are constantly over and over again encountered with stressors that release that cortisol and that epinephrine, and our adrenal glands are just pumping out all those hormones that make us stressed. And this is not healthy. So let's just move on. Let's talk about why we do not naturally complete the stress cycle and why that can be so hard. The first is because we mistake solving the stressor for solving the stress. So, for example, you send the email. In this situation with my daughter, we passed the car, right? Nothing happened. And the stressor was gone. There wasn't a big deal. However, our body still needs closure. And stress is not the stressor. Stress is actually the neurological and physiological shift that happens inside of your body, remember in milliseconds, when you encounter something that you perceive as a threat or something external happens to us that needs us to take action. So I want you in your mind to separate out the stressor from the stress. And when we can see that something is stressful, we need to drop into our body and find out what that stressor did for us or how that stressor made us feel. And that can help us identify, okay, was that past or is it still going? And there's more information in my last podcast on stress versus anxiety. And you can ask yourself, now that the stressor is past, was that feeling helpful? What did I do that stress wanted me to do? Did I physiologically move and complete the project and take action? And if so, now I need to know that I can relax. I've done what I could do, and it's okay for my body to move on. So just to recap, it's because we do not realize that the stress has passed. We still feel that feeling in our body. And because we feel that feeling in our body, our mind is on alert that I am stressed out. So differentiate between the stress that you feel in your body and the stressor that happened and it gave you that stressful feeling. And just being aware that those two are different will help you. Now, the second is in our culture, we are often discouraged from having any sort of emotional expression. We are told not to cry. Big girls don't cry. Big boys don't cry. I see people crying as adults and they apologize for themselves all the time. It kind of drives me crazy. I have started not apologizing. I tell my kids crying is good. Cortisol leaks from tears. It is just that when our tears leak out, that means that we are emotionally high enough that the crying can help us. We are told not to get angry. We are told to be professional. We are told to shut down our natural release valves of these emotions. A lot of times we're asked to keep it together, especially teachers, healthcare professionals, parents, also anyone who's working in customer service or the restaurant. My daughter had a great experience that she was helping with our school fundraiser, and she was at the custard restaurant, and some people ordered a shake and she brought them a shake. And it was super interesting because she said that they didn't like it because they ordered a small and the medium and they couldn't tell which was which. And they had the flavors wrong. And I asked her what she did. And she said that she just smiled and explained, hey, I'm actually not even an employee here. I'm just helping deliver the food that people order for my school. And they tried to work it out and took it back in and talked to a worker. But during this instance, she told me that she had a smile on her face and tried to explain it, but she said she was totally nervous inside. And this is what happens, right? We keep a smiling, regulated face on when we are swimming or fuming inside. And I am going to talk about this specifically in a podcast soon. This is called emotional labor, when we are asked to or paid to be emotionally regulated when we actually aren't inside, and how that is not always helpful. But it is interesting that, some places we can express our emotions and some places we are told not to. And a lot of that is at our workplace. And so we keep it all in and then we fall apart at home. We'll come back to that. So the third, and I think this is really important, reason why we don't complete the stress cycle is that we have so many stressors. Our modern life, we have stressors that are ongoing, especially in caregiving, especially taking care of patients, especially taking care of children, especially taking care of students. It's from one meltdown to the next, one high intensity thing to the next. I used to work labor and delivery, and we were all on edge because at any moment, a wonderful labor can go downhill really quickly. If you work in the ICU, your patient could code at any minute. When you're in the ER, who knows what's going to walk through that door? When you're working with students, you don't know if or when those students are going to act out. And if you're a parent, the exact same thing. I have 4 kids. It is rare that all 4 children are in the same mood, happy and great and wonderful, even when we're on vacation. It's like, really? Why can't we keep it together? Because we're human. That's the reason. So in our world, there is no clear endpoint. There is no clear, okay, we can shut down, we can relax right now. And your body doesn't know exactly when it gets to shut off. And this is where we can get into stress and anxiety. And again, listen to my last podcast for that explanation. I also want you to all know that really the fourth reason why most of us don't complete our stress cycle is because of time and practice. Most of us are so busy that we don't take the time to pause long enough. We don't know how to practice. We don't notice in our own bodies how stress feels. We know in our mind that we're stressed, but we haven't paid attention to the cues in our body that are telling our brain that we are stressed. And so we don't have the time or the practice to complete that stress cycle. And we've never been taught how to recover from stress. But before I talk about how to complete our stress cycle, I want to address some things that people might think helps them complete the stress cycle and helps them feel better, but in reality doesn't. It may for moments, and it's okay to do it in some moments, but I want to go into depth on why these ways aren't really helpful, because most of us, when we have stress pile up, we already have a handful of go-to strategies that might make us feel better for a little while, but they don't actually help your body finish that cycle and can often cause more problems in the long run. And I like to think of these as false exits on the stress highway. So you're going at 1,000,000 miles an hour, you're starting to feel like you're either going to crash or you're running out of gas and you need to get off and take an exit and refuel and take a break. But sometimes, you just get off for a minute, but you're still driving in circles. You're still going at high speeds because at this exit, we're not really refueled and it doesn't calm us down. And here are just a few examples that I thought of. The first is emotional eating. I am still a health coach, but I focused on health coaching for a few years. And I actually have a course on emotional eating because I feel like if you're human, you emotionally eat. And we've all had those nights where we have ice cream or chips calling our name. And yes, in the moment, comfort foods light up the brain's reward system and actually do calm down stress temporarily, right? We get that huge dopamine hit from the sugar, from the fat. Most often when we emotionally eat, we choose foods that are not healthy for us. Research has shown that relief from emotional eating is short-lived. Emotional eating has been strongly linked to higher levels of stress, anxiety, and depression. And often when we emotionally eat, the comfort doesn't resolve stress, but it layers on guilt, shame, and emotional distress. A lot of time like, man, why did I do that? Or, oh, my stomach hurts. Or I totally went off my plan, or that wasn't healthy. And our taste buds get addicted to certain types of food. And we put ourselves in a cycle of getting stressed, eating unhealthy, and our body craves those unhealthy foods and we just eat them. And guess what? Nutrition has a huge impact on our mental health. So try and eat healthy. No amount of food can solve a stressor unless you're hungry. Food can only solve hunger. That's it. Okay, the next one is alcohol or drinking to cope or drinking to calm down. I remember one of my coworkers had twins and we were talking one day and she said, I used to just settle down with a glass of wine every night. And now I'm settling down with a bottle of wine every night. And it is true that biochemically alcohol can suppress the nervous system for a while, right? It helps people relax. But the catch is alcohol is not good for our bodies. And studies have proven that drinking to cope with negative feelings predicts worse outcomes in the long term. People who turn to alcohol have shown to have higher rates of anxiety, depression, and not shockingly, alcohol problems, even when they aren't drinking heavily. And physiologically, chronic alcohol does disrupt our cortisol system. So over time, your body actually becomes more reactive to stress in chronic alcohol use. It increases cortisol and it disrupts the HPA axis, meaning that your body's stress response becomes dysregulated more often and more frequently. So you might feel good drinking alcohol, but it is not a reliable way to close the stress cycle or to overall minimize the stress that you have in your life. Okay, so let's talk about social media and doom scrolling. This one is sneaky because we can feel like scrolling through Instagram or TikTok or watching funny cat videos can feel like a brain break. And sometimes they are. But what usually happens is that 1 minute turns into 5 minutes, and that turns into 20 minutes, which turns into an hour. And while you're scrolling, you're doom scrolling the news. You're taking in even more stress. And so the problem is that these often prolong stress by keeping you aroused. So you have dopamine reactivity. You're looking at stressful things. You're comparing yourselves to other people. You're thinking, oh, I wish I were on vacation like all these people. And you just are increasingly exposing yourself to negative content, social comparison, FOMO, which produces more anxiety, disrupted sleep, and reducing time for meaningful recovery behaviors. Okay, pornography. This is huge. Pornography is like $1 billion industry in our society. And it is used as a way to self-soothe or numb. And why pornography is so powerful is, like food, it can help soothe us in all 5 senses. However, multiple studies have shown that pornography use is associated with lower relationship satisfaction. And of course, it can turn into an addiction. There was a study done of over 3,500 people, found that any level of pornography use was associated with reduced relationship stability and relationship joy. So again, pornography, relief in the moment, but it adds stress in relationships and self-esteem in the long term. It can produce shame and addiction, and it doesn't solve anything. Okay, this is the last one. Let's talk about yelling. So a lot of people think that yelling or venting helps them just let steam off, which I've been guilty of this. And it's true. After you yell, sometimes you do feel better. But what research has shown is actually that destructive anger, like yelling at your kids, yelling at your spouse, yelling at your coworkers, doesn't resolve stress. Athletes who have had yelling coaches, for example, report losing trust and respect rather than feeling motivated. It is important to know that anger itself isn't bad. Remember, emotions are not bad. They are messengers. Anger is a natural signal, but we need to express that anger constructively with boundaries and with honesty and using repair if you do get upset and yell at people, because anger can tell us what we're feeling inside, but it is destructive and it's another false exit that doesn't complete the stress cycle, and it has proven to damage relationships, and in the long term that makes us more stressed out. So just to wrap up, that numbing, distracting, or discharging that energy without resolution doesn't complete the stress cycle. They can give temporary relief, but they leave your nervous system stuck in survival mode and often create more problems in the future. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the science-backed ways to actually complete the stress cycle, because research has shown that there are powerful, simple ways that you can do this, and you don't need to overhaul your life. You don't need to take more time. You just simply need to give your body signals that it's waiting for. I'm going to go through several of them. Some of these are from Emily and Amelia Nagalski and their book, Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle, and others I've added in from the things I've learned in my training. So let's get started. The first and most effective, there are so many studies on this, is physical activity or just movement. Physical activity is the most reliable way to complete the stress cycle. So we move. If you think of an animal after a stressful encounter, usually the animal shakes its whole body to reset. We don't instinctively do that as humans, but I encourage you to find your own version of that reset. So this doesn't have to be a marathon, just a brisk 5 to 10 minute walk, just taking the stairs at the hospital after you transfer your patient. Go for a quick walk outside, do some jumping jacks, do some burpees, jump rope. What matters is that your heart rate goes up and then comes back down. If you're a teacher and you can tell that your students are dysregulated, have a dance party. If you're a parent, let's have a dance party in the kitchen. Anything that we can shake our bodies, shake out your hands, any sort of physical movement will help your body release that energy and come back to normal. I have a punching bag in our garage, and I encourage my children when they are feeling stressed or they've gotten in an argument, go outside and punch the punching bag, punch a pillow. All of those things that involve movement and is a healthy way to express that energy is helpful to complete the stress cycle. Very close second way, and you can do this if you cannot in the moment do physical activity, breathing. Deep, slow breathing that uses your diaphragm tells your parasympathetic nervous system it is safe now. I am fine. Research has shown that slow diaphragmatic breathing reduces cortisol levels and lowers blood pressure. It's also interesting to know that you can only breathe in the presence. That's why we use it in yoga and in the moment, and focus on your breathing, because our brain, when it goes into anxiety, which is in the future or in the past, we cannot breathe in the future and the past. And you are safe, and we need to remind your body of that. And so you breathe deep and use your diaphragm to stimulate the vagus nerve and your parasympathetic nervous system. There's lots of ways to breathe. There's the box method. So you breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, breathe out for 4 counts, and hold for 4 counts. Or there's the 4-7-8. So inhale for 4 counts, hold for 7 counts, exhale for 8 counts. Any sort of breathing. And when you do breathe, you need to make sure that your belly is filling and that your shoulders are not rising and your chest is not rising, so that we make sure that you use your diaphragm and pay attention to the inhales and exhales. You want your exhale to be longer than your inhale. So even 2 minutes of intentional breathing, even 30 seconds, can flip your system from stress mode into rest mode. Okay, the next one is laughter. This one is fun. Laughing literally shifts your physiology. So you can watch that funny cat video. You can watch a funny, stand-up comedy or whatever, because laughter does reduce hormones and increases endorphins. So share a joke, laugh with a friend. This isn't like ha ha ha, social, polite laughter. This is deep belly laughter. This is I can't help but laugh. Really does help complete the stress cycle and get that energy out. The fourth one is crying or emotional release. And sometimes this surprises people, but crying really is your nervous system's way of processing big emotions. So suppressing those tears keeps the stress cycle open. Allowing them to flow helps complete it. So I really do encourage you to, if you need to step out, go and cry. Anytime my kids cry, I'm like, good, just cry, just get it out. I feel like everybody needs a good cry every, week, few days, every month, whatever. A psychologist, Judith K. Nelson, actually said that crying triggers the soothing parasympathetic response and calms our body down. So the next time you feel that lump in your throat or your eyes start to burn, just give yourself permission to let it out, and also don't apologize for it. There's nothing wrong with crying. Another type of emotional release is, playing with clay, punching a pillow, playing in sand, anything that gives us like a tactile, something that we can feel as we are getting those emotions out is helpful. Okay, the fifth is positive social connection. And I have a podcast all about connection. And I will say it again, that our nervous systems are wired for connection. So a smile, looking people in the eye, a friendly chat, a big giant hug for at least 8 seconds, preferably up to 20 seconds, can release oxytocin, which is a bonding hormone and communicates that your body is safe. There's been several studies that show that physical affection, like hugging, lowers blood pressure and heart rate during stressful situations. Kissing for 6 seconds or longer is really helpful because you don't kiss anyone for 6 seconds that you actually don't love because it's too uncomfortable. So kiss your spouse, hug your kids, and get that positive social connection, that positive physical connection. All of this helps reset our nervous system. Okay, sixth, I love this one. This is creative expression. So art, music, journaling is huge. If you're a client of mine, I have told you to journal. Cooking, playing the guitar, playing the piano, any form of self-expression can help your body externalize stress and regulate it. Knitting, crocheting, anything like that. And this doesn't have to be beautiful or perfect. Scribbling, doodling, coloring can all create safety. It also uses different parts of our brain, our creative part of our brain, and it signals to our body completion because we cannot be creative and stressed out at the same time. I love watching musicians kind of like get in that zone when they're playing the piano or the violin, and it's beautiful for me to see them in that flow or that zone of creative expression. So anything that you can do to be creative. I also encourage people who feel like their life is just really stressful to do something that's creative and a hobby to help them get out of that stress cycle. Okay, the seventh and last that I'm going to talk about is rest and sleep. Not shocking, right? Rest and sleep is when your brain and body process what happens. It helps us recover. It's where we repair, where we restore, where we help our body recharge. And definitely the quality of sleep that you have has a direct correlation with emotional regulation and can help you reduce the impact of daily stress. REM sleep in particular helps your emotional brain integrate stressful events and process stress. Of course, stress does make sleep harder, right? It's a cycle. But even small steps like creating calming bedtime rituals, short daytime naps can help. This is what I help a lot of my clients with. And I've talked a lot about this. I used to wake up all the time in the middle of the night. I didn't have a hard time falling asleep, just staying asleep because my mind would start to spin and wake me up during the night. And since I've been able to retrain my brain and nervous system, I have slept so much better. And that's what I love helping my clients do also. Okay, so let's just finish up with some practical tips and habit formation to just make this a part of your life instead of a one-time experiment. So build tiny habits that help you complete the stress cycle. Notice your body's cues. Do you have tight shoulders, a clenched jaw, a racing heart? These are all signals that you need to complete the cycle. So you relax your body. It has been scientifically proven over and over again that distress cannot exist in a calm, relaxed body. So the more we can relax our body, the better. So maybe every time you leave your desk or close your laptop or leave a patient's room or walk into the hallway if you're at school or, you're a mom laying in your bed and you're getting up, just take 5 deep breaths. Just remind your nervous system that you are safe in that moment. After a phone call, just take a quick walk. Do a few jumping jacks. Do anything that can remind your nervous system and your brain that you are safe in that moment and there's no danger. I also want to encourage you to experiment because not every tool works the same for everybody. Some people release their stress through laughter. Others, it works best through running. Some people don't get that physical running high, and that's totally fine. Just try a few and notice what helps you feel lighter, what helps you feel better, because our nervous systems are all wired differently. Also, use transitions for your benefit. So, create a beginning of your day ritual. Create an end of day ritual. These are things like journaling, exercising, meditating, hot showers, anything to signal to your body that the stress is over, or we're widening our window of tolerance in preparation for the day, or signaling to our body that our day is done. And then the last is just seek safe connection. Remember, our brain is wired to connect to other humans. So seek connection and look for cues that you are safe. Okay, so let's just conclude and wrap up. Stress itself isn't the enemy. What hurts us is we get stuck in the stress cycle after the stressor has gone. The stressor is the cause of stress. The stress is a physiological change that is in our bodies, and we need to help our bodies finish what they started. The stress cycle is like a story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And too often we cut the story short before the last chapter and we never finish it. So completing the cycle is just about giving your body the ending that it needs, whether that's through movement, breath, laughter, tears, connection, creativity, or rest. The key is finding what works for you and what you can do in that moment and what you can practice regularly and make into a habit. So this week, the challenge is to choose one strategy and try it. Maybe it's going on a daily walk. Maybe it's starting a journaling practice. Gratitude is huge. Write down 3 things that you're grateful for at the end of the day. Giving someone that you love a big giant hug for at least 8 seconds, preferably up to 20. And just notice how you feel after you're doing things. Notice if your body softens, if your mind clears, if your breath deepens. And know that those are cues that your stress cycle is closing. We need to remember that our body is on our side. We just need to help pay attention to what's going on in our body and remember that it often needs help finishing what it started. So, thank you for joining me today. If this episode was helpful, please share it with somebody who's been under stress. If you want to dive a little bit deeper, I love helping people with stress and burnout and feeling overwhelmed and feeling frustrated. This is what I do. And I have a free burnout call that I'm happy to talk with you to see if we're a good fit. So until then, take care of your body, complete those stress cycles, and reach out to me if you need help. And I'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in to Burnout Solutions. If you found today's episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I would appreciate it if you could rate and review so other people can find this podcast easier. And when you're ready to stop working harder and start working differently, head on over to my website at www.monatippets.com. That's TIPPETS. And grab my free resources on rewiring your brain and nervous system for less stress and more ease. Hope to connect with you soon. Take care.